May 11, 1996, started as a typical Saturday in the tranquil Florida Everglades. The calm was shattered by a thunderous explosion as ValuJet Flight 592 crashed into the murky swampland, erupting into a massive fireball. The impact scattered debris across the tranquil landscape, transforming it into a heartbreaking scene of destruction. Amidst the chaos, remains of the aircraft, torn clothing, and personal effects bore silent witness to the horror that had unfolded in the skies above. This horrific scene marked the tragic end of a routine flight, as families and friends anxiously awaited news about their loved ones, and a nation grappled with yet another devastating aviation disaster. How did this routine flight take such a terrifying turn? Why did a plane fail so catastrophically? And who was responsible for the lives lost in this disaster?
I'm the mother of the captain of ValuJet 592, Captain Candlin Chamberlain Kubek, and I am very angry.
This was one of these historic cases that had a tremendous amount of public attention and public concern.
I have always thought this crash was very preventable and very senseless.
ValuJet 592 fell out of the sky because of a complete breakdown of the system.
ValuJet Airlines, recognized for its budget-friendly fares, has established a significant presence in the competitive air travel industry by the mid-1990s, catering primarily to cost-conscious travelers, including families, vacationers, and business passengers. The airline thrived by offering low-cost options. McDonnell Douglas DC-932 aircraft involved in the tragic flight was a key component of ValuJet's strategy to provide affordable, no-frills service throughout the United States. ValuJet's rapid expansion in the competitive air travel market was flawed by a problematic safety record, characterized by numerous incidents and conspicuous operational lapses. The airline's aggressive pursuit of cost-cutting measures often led to compromised safety protocols, resulting in frequent flight delays, ongoing maintenance issues, and questionable operational practices. These issues caught the attention of industry experts and raised serious concerns about the airline's commitment to safety. One notable aspect of ValuJet's operation was its practice of acquiring used aircraft, which, while cost-effective, posed additional risks if not thoroughly maintained. The airline also tended to offer only minimal training for its flight attendants and even forced its pilots to pay for their own training. ValuJet also heavily relied on external contractors for critical maintenance tasks. This approach to staffing and maintenance was a significant departure from industry best practices and contributed to the airline's shaky safety reputation. Two incidences prior to the tragic crash of Flight 592 exemplify ValuJet's troubling safety record. In June 1995, Flight 597 was forced to abort takeoff due to an engine catching fire, a result of improper maintenance. Then, in January 1996, Flight 558 experienced a near disaster when part of its right engine broke away shortly after takeoff. But the crew managed to avoid the catastrophe, narrowly avoiding a fatal outcome. These incidents exemplified the risks in ValuJet's operational strategies and underscored the potential dangers of its cost-saving measures. The U.S. military had recognized these risks earlier and rejected ValuJet's bid to transport military personnel due to the airline's safety shortcomings. Furthermore, there were mounting concerns within the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, about the airline's fitness to operate, with some officials advocating for grounding the airline altogether. Despite multiple warnings and the accumulation of red flags from earlier incidents, ValuJet Flight 592 was scheduled to fly from Miami to Atlanta on May 11, 1996. Earlier that day, the DC-9 aircraft had been delayed leaving Atlanta due to a series of maintenance issues. The aircraft had problems ranging from a faulty circuit breaker for the right auxiliary hydraulic pump and an inoperative left fuel flow gauge to a malfunctioning autopilot system, which other pilots had reported defective for several days. Additionally, during its earlier flight to Atlanta, the intercom system failed, disrupting communication between the cockpit and cabin crew. Passengers from the subsequent Atlanta to Miami flight reported that the public address system was also out of order, forcing flight attendants to use a megaphone for announcements and routine duties. Upon arriving in Miami, a mechanic from SaberTech was called on board to address these issues, but the problems were too complex to be resolved by a single technician on site. And as a result, the aircraft was cleared to return to Atlanta. Aboard Flight 592, there were 105 passengers and 5 crew members, along with additional cargo comprising of 3 DC-9 landing gear tires and 5 cardboard boxes marked as company material. Inside these boxes were 144 chemical oxygen generators, critical safety devices designed to supply oxygen in the event of cabin depressurization. These generators function by initiating a chemical reaction when a passenger activates their oxygen mask, pulling a firing pin that triggers the process. However, these generators pose significant risks if not handled correctly. They're required to be fitted with safety caps that prevent accidental activation of the firing pin. Without these caps, the generators can overheat during activation, reaching temperatures exceeding 250 degrees Celsius. The high heat can be extremely dangerous, particularly if the generators are activated inadvertently or mishandled, greatly increasing the risk of a fire on board. The path to disaster began with what seemed like a minor oversight, but quickly escalated into a fatal chain of events. Tragically, the generators were not only expired, but also packed without safety caps and labeled as non-hazardous, a critical error made by SaberTech. This mislabeling and improper packaging meant that the handlers were unaware of the inherent risks. During the flight, likely due to movement during takeoff, the generators activated. The action initiated a chemical reaction that produced both heat and oxygen, fueling a fire within the cargo hold. As the plane ascended to cruising altitude, the fire intensified, unseen and unchecked. The smoke detection systems in the cargo area of the DC-9 were insufficiently equipped to alert the crew in time to the presence of smoke until it was too late. By the time the smoke alarms rang throughout the cockpit, the situation had already reached a critical phase. The pilots, Captain Candy Kubik and First Officer Richard Hazen, were faced with a dire emergency as they scrambled to understand the scope of the disaster unfolding below them. The crew declared an emergency and attempted to return to Miami. Yet, as they desperately worked the controls, the fire weakened the plane's electrical systems and structural integrity. The passengers, unaware of the causes of the distress, were enveloped in smoke, confusion, and fear, transforming their routine flight into a nightmare. The aircraft's rapid descent into the Everglades was marked by chaos in the cabin as the fire consumed everything in its path, ultimately leading to the devastating crash that claimed the lives of everyone on board. In the immediate aftermath of ValuJet Flight 592's crash, emergency services launched a frantic rescue operation amidst the challenging terrain of the Florida Everglades. The remote and waterlogged crash site, known for its dense swamp and lurking alligators, made the search and rescue efforts particularly daunting. Helicopters circled overhead, lowering rescue teams into the thick muck, while airboards carrying firefighters and paramedics navigated the shallow, murky waters to reach the wreckage. The severity of the crash and the fierce fire that engulfed the aircraft meant that the focus swiftly shifted from rescue to recovery. Media outlets rushed to the scene, broadcasting live footage of the smoldering debris and the exhaustive efforts to recover any remains. The intense media attention brought the nation's focus to the Everglades, turning the disaster into a national tragedy witnessed in real time. As word of the tragedy spread, ripples of distress reverberated through the communities of Miami and Atlanta. Families and friends of those on board gathered in desperation and sorrow at the airports. Supported by grief counselors and airline staff, the airport waiting areas became sanctuaries of mourning, where the air was thick with grief. Here, people clung to each other, sharing memories and stories of their loved ones, drawing comfort from the solidarity of their community as they struggled to grasp the magnitude of their sudden and heartbreaking loss. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, led the investigation into the ValuJet Flight 592 disaster with the aim of uncovering the factors that caused the tragic crash. Early in the investigation, attention focused on a fire that originated in the aircraft's cargo hold. The scrutiny intensified as investigators discovered that chemical oxygen generators, which produce oxygen through a chemical reaction when activated, were stored improperly in the cargo hold without the required safety caps. This oversight violated federal regulations for the handling of hazardous materials. Further, it was revealed that ValuJet's aggressive cost-cutting measures and rapid expansion had led to lapses in their oversight of contracting companies, contributing to a culture where safety was compromised. The investigation shed light on significant lapses in safety standards and regulatory oversight within both ValuJet and SaberTech. The NTSB also criticized the Federal Aviation Administration for its inadequate oversight of budget airlines like ValuJet, which had been allowed to operate with minimal inspection despite their fast-paced growth and the associated risks. The ValuJet tragedy prompted a re-evaluation of safety protocols across the entire airline industry, particularly impacting budget airlines, which were known for their cost-cutting measures. The crash acted as a catalyst for sweeping regulatory changes designed to enhance passenger safety. One of the most significant outcomes was the tightening of regulations surrounding the transport of hazardous materials. Airlines were now required to adhere to stricter guidelines on how such materials were documented, handled, and stored. Moreover, the FAA mandated the installation of smoke detectors and automatic fire suppression systems in all aircraft cargo holds to prevent similar disasters. These systems were designed to detect smoke or fire quickly and suppress it without the need for pilot intervention, significantly enhancing safety in air transport. The FAA also implemented more rigorous oversight of airlines, particularly focusing on their maintenance operations and the subcontractors they employed. This led to increased audits, more comprehensive compliance checks, and steeper penalties for safety violations, ensuring that airlines maintained high safety standards. The ValuJet Flight 592 disaster serves as a profound lesson on the importance of rigorous safety standards and oversight in the aviation industry. It highlighted the potentially dangerous consequences of neglecting safety in favor of cost reduction and exposed the vulnerabilities within regulatory frameworks that allowed such oversights to occur. This tragedy emphasized that safety must never be compromised. The lessons from this event have reshaped policies and practices within the airline industry to prioritize passenger safety above anything else. It serves as a devastating reminder that the true cost of negligence is measured in human lives. In memory of those that left us in the ValuFlight 592 disaster, families of the victims collaborated to establish a poignant memorial. They chose a serene site near the crash location in the Florida Everglades, where a striking monument now stands. Engraved on it are the names of the 110 souls who perished, serving as a permanent tribute to their lives. This sacred place offers a space for reflection and remembrance, where families and friends can gather to honor their loved ones and share their enduring memories. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more future content. Click the bell icon so you never miss an upload. See you next time.